Right, I'm the artist taxi driver. This, my friends, is Suzanne Dhaliwal. She is from No Tar Sands UK Network. Is that right?
No. UK Tar Sands Network.
Okay. Do you know what tar sands are? Do you? Tar sands. What's tar sands?
Well, tar sands are the name for the oil deposits found in Canada. It refers to the bitumen, the black sticky substance that you have to get from underneath the forest. And once you've taken that out from underneath the forest, you have to mix it with many chemicals, a cocktail of chemicals and water, to eventually turn it into a substance that you can actually get through a pipe and be sold as oil, a low-grade oil.
So it's a petroleum deposit that is like thick, like bitumen, like tar.
Yeah, it's like tar, pretty much.
And there is trillions and trillions of barrels, possibly, well, there are, right across a vast swathe of Canada.
Yeah, it's underneath sort of the last remaining intact wetlands, the boreal forest. So, just as you've got the Amazon, the boreal is sort of thought of as the other side of the lungs of the planet. So it's a really pristine, special place.
So we've got this beautiful forest, and to get to it,
what do you have to do? You have to completely strip mine the forest, and a lot of the time that the trees aren't even used for anything after that. So it basically looks like the moon. Like when I went up there, it was just shocking. It was just like it's been completely desecrated, and you have to completely remove all the trees in what they call overburden, what we might call squirrel's life. They call it overburden in order to get it out.
So just take all the trees away, take all the life away, decimate it. And how big is this area?
Well, the full area that's planned to be carved up is the size of England and Wales. That's the full scale that they want to do. But there's already been hundreds and hundreds of kilometres that have been destroyed.
Wow.
Process.
So what do the local people say? The people in Canada and.
Mm-hmm. Well, the tar sands have been going for years now. Like some of the projects, 55 years. And some of the communities do have, they have deals with the companies. They, this is an oil country. And so it's been in the last few years that the communities have been speaking out more and more about the fact that they're starting to see that their community members are dying from rare and autoimmune diseases, cancers. Their animals and fish, their traditional foods that they rely on both for subsistence and as part of their traditional way of life, and their rights to hunt and trap are being, it's harder to find the animals. When they do find them, they've often got like sores and tumours inside them, and so they can't really eat them. And so the communities have, since 2009, we've been working to internationalise what's coming out from these communities, that they're not being heard about their health concerns. And the other thing is that a lot of these projects, most of them, are going ahead without proper consent of the communities, and they're violating their constitutional rights to actually have a proper consultation process with these projects.
So I've got down here, there's 160 First Nations. So these are indigenous Canadian Indians. Mm. So the oil what oil companies are there?
All of them.
Every single one.
Every one of them's in there. All the majors. You've got BP, Shell, Total, Chevron, Exxon. All of them. It's the biggest conglomeration of corporate power in history.
So what's the actual problem? Is that apart from decimating the land, apart from killing all the life, is that when they extract, when the process of taking it out, they have to pump in water with chemicals in it. And I've got down here the chemicals: mercury, arsenic, zinc, celium, which is going into the water supply.
Yeah. So a lot of the communities live downstream from that water, and so they're drinking it, and it hasn't been monitored. none of these projects are properly being monitored. Like, they're starting to now, and there might be a little bit of monitoring there, but nobody knows the cumulative impacts of all of these projects together. And some of the tailings ponds, which are the water byproducts that accumulate after the process, sit right next to the Athabasca River, which is one of the major rivers.
So the tailing ponds, this is where all the pollution, all the polluted, they make this.
It's the industrial
where do they take the water from? Originally,
from the watershed, from the rivers, from the groundwater.
They take it directly from the river? From
the groundwater as well, from aquifers.
I've got down here 2 tons of oil sand is needed for just one, of tar sand is needed for just 1 barrel.
Yeah.
But it's also having an effect with pollution, air pollution. I've got hydrogen sulfide in the air.
Yeah, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, tons of those. Huge amounts of respiratory illness from the communities who live near there. When I went to visit some of the communities there, you could smell it in the air, you could smell it in the water. A lot of people getting sores. And what happens is, when they bring this forward, though, there's a bit of a sense in Canada of, well, it's just a few people. It's just a few people. It's very far away. And Joe Oliver, the Minister of Canada Environment, he's actually said no one lives up there.
So we have what kind of government we got there? Conservative?
Petro-tyranny, basically. It's a Conservative government, but Prime Minister Harper has overnight removed environmental legislation that has protected the waterways, that gives people ability to have consultation and process around projects, in order to what he calls Canada's Economic Action Plan, to push forward with development. And
we've got, I've got down here massive greenhouse gases, because converting the bitumen, the tar sand, into actually a petroleum gives off like enormous.
Yeah, it's about 23% more polluting than conventional oil. But on top of that is also the emissions. The destruction of a incredible intact boreal forest also increases emissions, and then you've also got the burning of it. And so that's why we're seeing now in Europe there's a bit of a light going on. Hang on a minute, we think that this is a bit more polluting than conventional oil, and there's efforts to try and stop it coming into the EU market with the Fuel Quality Directive at the moment.
But I mean, we're there. This is the city of corruption, the city of London.
Yeah.
Being promoted. We've got resources from our government.
Yeah, it's difficult, and the UK government has been the main stumbling block, working with Canada to interfere with this legislation, trying to delay it. They're very cosy, the UK government and the Canadian government. So that's why we have a dual role in the UK, to call out the Canadian government about what's happening, and also how the UK government is colluding with the Canadian government to push this.
And I heard the price of the oil, of the petrol, is they get twice the amount for each barrel. Why is that?
Well, it's really inflated with the cost, and it's I'm not sure about it, it's twice. I mean, it's just really expensive, and because you've got violence in the Middle East, and the Canadian oil became more profitable after you saw the Gulf War, when you see now that the US is starting to turn to home sources for energy security in a sense. So it's an inflated cost, and it's really heavily subsidised with taxes in Alberta. So that's why it's also a really volatile.
So most of it
commodity.
is in Alberta, and there is a lot of protesting going on up there, isn't there? And there's a big movement against tar sands. There's the Idle No More people. There's a lot of people.
There's some incredible communities, and there's some incredible women like First Nations activists that I work with the Beaver Lake Cree Nation. They're currently in litigation and preparing for litigation, to challenge the fact that there's been thousands of projects and leases given out on their land that they've never said yes to. So there's a big fundraising right now to support them with
Do they have a blockade?
Work.
Is that the ones that have the blockade?
No, they don't have a blockade at the moment. They're going through a legal process with this. And the Athabasca Chippewa First Nation, they're challenging Shell for some of their major projects, which would double some of the pits at the moment. So those are some of the communities that we really work close to. And the way Idle No More fits into this as well is that Idle No More sort of came in to emergence in response to those, those laws being taken away overnight. And, this is a people that tar sands isn't the first thing, you know, so they've gone through uranium, through all sorts of extraction on their land. So this is just one more thing to deal with, and a culture that's had to deal with like genocide in Canada, residential schooling. So, you know, the word Idle No More is an interesting moment in this history of this indigenous resistance that's continuing to fight extraction.
But this whole what I call the war machine, which is
Yeah.
the banks, oil, and the arms. They don't care about, like Max Kaiser said to me, people are in the way. People are in the way. You know, for them to whether it's in Iraq or whether it's in Colombia or whether it's in Nigeria or Canada, you know, the local indigenous people, they have to be moved, they have to be killed, they have to be like polluted out of their existence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's what we're facing, and that's why we need a frigging strong international solidarity movement. So when these people are moving forward from a rights-based framework, we support them to uphold their rights. I know the Queen's messed up. I know what you think about her, but still,
The Queen of the hairy goat-legged. Listen, you know that she was also the Queen of Canada.
That's what I'm saying. So there's reasons.
But she gave out her speech there the other day.
Yeah.
That's awful, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I'm not going to put any hope in it. But the point is that these treaties that the First Nations have are nation-to-nation agreements. These aren't like people with a minority in the country. These are nations, so they need to have their rights upheld. And just as we've seen, like, you know, in other social movements, people supporting the rights of other people, that's where we need to get with the climate justice movement. It's about, you know, all these carbon tracking and all this stuff, but at the heart of it, it's supporting those people who are on the front lines, who are trying to keep this stuff in the ground and standing with them and elevating their voices. And that's something that's, you know, the way I've been working in environmental justice framework, and it means that the solutions actually come from the people on the ground, and there has to be a shift in the thinking there, and a decolonisation in how we do campaigning as well, that we support people on the ground rather than often imposing our solutions top down.
I'm the artist taxi driver. This, my friends, has been Suzanne Dhaliwal.